Just as a disclaimer, this is a Barrier Invocation Infernalist. This build works differently than versions that run Life Recoup or even CI. From what I can tell, this is a lot less tanky. We're a little more fast and loose with the playstyle. I don't know if it can progress as far in the end game, but it has been a lot of fun. The gearing requirements are not hard, but you're hitting a lot of specific breakpoints that can make it difficult. So if you're looking to swap to something like this, I don't know if I'd recommend it. I can't recommend specific gearing, but I can explain how I think Pyromantic Pact works just from what I've seen, and that'll help you decide how to go about gearing your character. So with Pyromantic Pact, which is the core component of this build, your maximum mana is replaced by Infernal Flame. You're no longer spending mana. It's converted completely to flame, and you're now building it up. Now I got a little visual error, but you can see that orange line is where the flame is. When it completely fills up, I'm taking a hit of energy shield, which is filling up the barrier energy, and now I've got 3 charges. So I cast this, it hits me with the pact going off, we're filled up completely, and I can do it again. My ES recovery rate is so high that I spend probably about a second between casts, and while you're mapping, this can be a little lower because essentially you're throwing out a barrage. You can run through the pack, pick up the souls from Grim Feast, and keep moving. With bosses, it's a lot slower, or a little slower. You do have to wait for that passive recharge. You gotta play well too. I'm not that great. I get hit quite a bit. If you do, that's gonna delay that recovery. So how we're getting the balance of the pact is the hit is mitigated. That 100% damage that you take when you trigger it is mitigated by fire resistance. It occurs as a hit. I don't think, from what I've tested, if you have increased fire damage, none of that seems to affect it. I actually used to think that it crit you sometimes. I've had it explained to me that that's not the case, but it can ignite you. I've solved that in my build, which we'll go over in a little bit, but we'll show you. So trigger the hit, just take flat damage there, and bam. And so that one ignited me. That delays my ES recovery. I'm spending, I think a base of 4 seconds being ignited. It's really detrimental to this version of the build. I wouldn't recommend playing this if you're not solving that problem, which I will get to. So what I've done is we have the fire resistance at 85. That is about where I feel comfortable. If I go up to 86, the hit I'm taking from Pyromantic Pact is too low. I'm not generating enough ES with that. I'll swap to Rise of the Phoenix here. So you can see when I trigger the Pact, I'm only building up 1 charge. The loop isn't going off. So there's a few ways to balance that. The worst way is probably just dropping your fire resistance low. You're going to take bigger hits sequentially. It's not how I like to do it. You can solve it with some gems. There is one gem that grants increased energy gain, which I'll go over, and jewels, and also a high ES and life pool. So in my current state, I have 10,600 ES, 866 life, and 85 fire resistance. With my increased energy gain modifier, each time I'm setting off the pact, I'm able to sequentially loop. The pact also has some issues. If your comet costs are too low and you're not triggering it, the loop's not going to take place. So I'll go over that when we talk about the skill gems. So as you can see, Barrier Invocation, you gain energy based on shield loss to damage taken. So you want a high quality, highest version possible. The dex requirements do go up, so that is something to keep in mind. This is currently at 69% energy gain. Running Comet. So right now it's level 24. If you're going up higher levels, the mana cost is going to start going way up. And what happens is, if on a salvo of 3 comets, you can double trigger this. That's going to hurt. It'll probably kill you. You don't want that. I'm comfortable at this 24 level on my current life in ES. It's a balancing act to just get it in that right spot. I'm running Spell Echo. Does jack up the cost, but it's, does a lot of damage. Visually, it looks cool. I also have Considered Casting. That's 40% more spell damage with hits. At least I think we can see with the average damage. I take that off. We're at 1300. Put it back in. We're looking at 1800. Fourth gem is Capacitor. 80% increased maximum energy. That gives me the 3 stacks each time. And then the 6th slot is Flexible. So if you're struggling with energy gain, you can do this 40% increased energy. It makes it a lot easier to just not have to worry about all this balancing. The energy gain's higher. Maybe you can be a little more flexible with your keyring and things like that. And also, if you're not having the maximum number of links, I'd probably just drop Considered Casting, throw in the increased energy gain, and just run it with Spell Echo. That it's going to do enough damage in lower maps, but it makes the build not feel as fun. So I throw back in Considered Casting, and now the last gem. I've switched these out just based on how I'm feeling. We have Spell Cascade. I've used this during maps. It's not the most damage. It's just kind of fun, just to throw out those, sequential barrages and have a lot more area of coverage. It does the least amount of damage of the gem options, but if I'm not fighting a boss, even in a T15, it still works pretty well, and it looks cool, so I like that. Another option is Concentrated Effect, more area damage, less area effect. So I put this in, we can see the damage is up to 2500. You're getting a smaller zone. So if I haven't done Pinnacles or anything like this, I don't know if this build is going to work that well there. But smaller zone, you probably don't need as much AoE, you're just getting higher hit per volley. And then the last option I've gone with is just Magnified Effect. It's kind of the middle ground. You're not gaining more damage, you're not losing it from that, but you are getting more AoE. This works pretty well with like a boss with a map T15, T16 with a map boss in it. You're kind of balancing the in-between there.
Yes.
Some other gems I'm running. So Grim Feast is pretty massive. This is the ES recovery with quality when you're killing monsters. That's what lets me trigger that, blink in, take things, keep moving. I play pretty aggressively. If you play that way, you can definitely get killed sometimes. I'm running Arctic Armor with knockback, actually first for Grim Feast support gems. I unclick this. I'm not really seeing anything that's useful for me. Flask recovery, cannibalism, none of these things are really doing that much for my build, so I have nothing socketed into it. I'm running Arctic Armor. Just when melee hits, I can back off on some of those guys. Recommended gems for that. I just have knockback support. You could probably put whatever you really wanted in here. I don't think anything is too particularly valuable. I could be wrong. Whatever. So that's just on that one link. For my curse, this is triggering the Pact. I'm using this on bosses or maybe tougher rare enemies. We have Hypothermia. I plan on running Whispers of Doom. I just don't have enough skill points. Currently, my next level, I'm going to take it. But you'll see I'm still running 2 curses. The way I have this set up is I have a weapon swap that runs Temporal Chains. So you see I swap to the shield. I'm putting Temporal Chains down for a slowing zone. And I can block a little, giving me a little more room to kind of recover and get back. I switch back to my focus once the ES recharge kicks in. Since I like doing Ritual Expedition, this just adds maybe a little more layer of protection if you're kind of getting overwhelmed. inside hypothermia, I have 25% increased support. Cold mastery, I think there's probably better options here. And then increased cast speed. I don't have a ton of cast speed, so it's slow. For temporal change, more area of effect. Curse ground on you, so it puts that zone on the ground. And then increased magnitude of slows. This Eye of Winter, I've seen some other guides. They've been using this to apply critical weakness to the builds. Comet has a very high base crit chance. This can do that. I haven't been as successful. For me, it's kind of awkward to cast, so I haven't really been using it. I'm going to try incorporating it a little better. There's definitely better gems to put in here. I just have inflict cold exposure, more projectile speed, and wild shards. I don't think any of these are that great. I don't actually use this that often, but maybe as I go further I'll get a little better with it. So Frost Bomb, applying cold exposure with increased effect, more duration, and penetrating cold resistance. So this, I'm not freezing things as often as some of the other builds, and since the patch change, I do throw this down on bosses before they're frozen. And then I have Blink. So Blink with 30% increased cooldown recovery rate, 50% less cooldown, twice as many cooldown uses. And this one I'm not sure about. I haven't played it that much with Blink. It's been something I've seen other build guides using, and I liked it, so I took it and have now switched and I'm using it. But Energy Shield recharge begins immediately, is not interrupted by 2 seconds when stunned. I don't know if this works. I don't know. I'm not getting stunned a lot, so I don't know if I can trigger this through that. Also, my blink is kind of low level, so I'll fix that. But I can blink twice. I can meteor, blink through, keep moving forward. This is a new addition to the build. In a couple of my older videos, I don't have that. So for gearing, we're pretty flexible with a lot of our slots, with gloves, belt, our boots, even our rings and helmet. We're looking for high ES bases. I'm taking just any stats I need, so any resistances, any attributes, life and energy shield, getting as much energy shield as possible, just as whatever you can afford or pick up. You can see these gloves are pretty good. I don't need that life per kill. The attacks is useless. My belt, I have life, thorns damage. The maximum mana is important for getting that comet in the right spot. If my mana is too low, I'm double triggering the Pact. If it's too high, I'm not triggering it at all. For ES, this is probably one of my more expensive items. 30% movement speed feels really good. If you don't have that, it feels pretty slow. And then decent ES and resistances with some int. My rings are just resistances. The 3 prefixes there are pretty much doing nothing for me. For this one, I have mana, max life, dexterity. My focus is a high energy shield base with increased cold damage and recharge rate. I don't want plus spell gems currently. It'll make the comet cost too high. I'll have that double Pact triggering issue. And my wand, I think I bought this one pretty early and ended up big Zalt slamming the T10 mana. So that actually, that helped a lot, but I'm looking for the spell damage. Extra damage is cold. For the level of all cold spells, you can find a cheaper version with +3 and then just get your plus gems maybe from somewhere else. +5 even for this at my current state is going to be too much for my build to handle. My amulet is filling out my spirit requirements, dexterity, chaos resistances, and maximum ES. This isn't, I don't think I'd run a maximum life base. You can get whatever you want that makes these sort of things balance better. And I've allocated vulgar methods. It's a cheap anoint, 10% reduced maximum mana, strength, and crit chance. All pretty useful. We'll see in my skill tree I have some kind of awkward choices just to make this fit better, but I'll cover that a little later. Helmet, same thing. Accuracy rating's not doing anything. The other things are resistances, life, and ES. In my sockets, I did kind of make this before the resistance changes, so I have a way over capped on cold and just barely on lightning now. A little under on chaos. I would have switched up some of these. I have 123 fire resistance. You can put in here either +1 max fire resistance if you're looking to get a little higher on that, or just flat resistances, or even the +20% ES. So the only real specific requirement that this rare item has is on my base. I want the faster start of energy shield recharge. This helps a lot. I have plus 330% delay modifier. 43% is coming from this base alone. And the other key component is reduced ignite duration on you. I have T5. I don't know if that's the highest or not, but it's 60% reduced ignite duration. I get the other 40% from my tree, which I will go over. So you're still looking for max ES, maximum energy shield increase. I got a pretty good rolls. The 749 is a lot of ES, and I put 2 more in so I can get over this 10,000 number. But you do need that reduced ignite duration if you're going to want to play this version. For my charm, I just have immunity to freeze. If you're not ignite immune, you could put an ignite charm here that'll help you while mapping, but it's not going to help you against really tanky rares or bosses. You're going to run out of those charms and start igniting yourself again. My mana flask literally does nothing. I could probably just unequip it. And then the life flask, I just have instant recovery. In my current state, I'm not using it very often. It's just if for some reason I'm going way low, I can tap it for instant to bring back up. So in my skill swap, I've got Rise of the Phoenix. I was using this when I was getting through like T1 through T15 maps. I was using this instead of an ES base. It gives a lot of maximum fire resistance. You can corrupt it for the double socket, put 2 +1s. When you corrupt it, this can actually go to +6. So you can get, +7 maximum fire resistance just from this shield alone. Lets you block for a brief period of time if you're getting hit with some of those like nasty chaos projectile things, or poison things, I guess. And then I use it for cursing when I swap. So with those skill gems, Temporal Chains is on Weapon Swap 2. When I right click to do Hypothermia, I'm swapping back to the Focus because that's used only with weapons at 1. I don't have Whispers of Doom right now, so I'm losing that effectiveness. But like an Expedition, I'll put down Temporal Chains, and then my plan is to put Hypothermia over that and start going in Barrier Invocation. If I'm getting overwhelmed, I can Temporal Chains, block for a second, blink out, come back in with my Focus and go around. So it's more active playstyle. You're not just running through maps. You get to play a little more aggressively or defensively, just on how you're feeling about it. It's been a lot of fun. And then let's go into the skill tree. Oops, not that. So the skill tree, you can see I've taken a lot of maximum energy shield all the way up through here. Let me just swap to Focus. This is the main build for how I have my Focus set up. I have weapon swap points allocated. I don't know. I feel like this is kind of janky. I'm not like using it that well. But you can see I'm pathing up through here, gaining max ES. I actually have this maximum mana picked. It's kind of inefficient. So, you're kind of wondering why. Why am I taking 10% reduced maximum mana and then 5% increased maximum mana? It's just about that balancing. Without this, I was getting these weird instances where I was double triggering the Pact, hitting myself twice. Things were getting a little dicey. But now that I've kind of balanced that mana, I'm at that 1,000. Comic cost is I think like 325 per. I'm not double triggering the Pact, and the movement's a lot smoother. So I'm taking max ES and maximum energy shield over here. taking every faster start of energy shield recharge I can. We're seeing our damage isn't really coming from these elemental nodes, which would be nice, but we're limited by how often we can cast Barrier Invocation. I've pathed up through here. We're taking jewels where we can, taking maximum energy shield along here. I'm taking the elemental nodes. So some of these nodes are inefficient, but you'll see why. This jewel is what just makes the build work. So when I'm igniting myself, I need to reduce that ignite duration. There might be other ways to solve it. This is just how I saw this jewel and just knew it would fit. I have a minus 100% ignite duration on self. Each small passive skill, passive and radius grant reduced ignite duration, not including attributes. That was unfortunate when I didn't read that or know that. So these don't work. You can only take these little small passives to do it. So I think I have to take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or I think I'm taking like 6 or 7 of these just to get to that 100%. So I need 40%. I need 8, and then they also grant +1 to maximum fire resistance. So that's how with this focus I can get up to 85. I'm using this jewel with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 notables allocated here for 5 max fire resistance. I'm using enhanced barrier for another one, and then I actually have 2 rubies with maximum fire resistance as well. And you'll see I'm taking, this is still energy shield recharge rate, which is nice. It's not, the greatest. It does give me at like a 3,000. So if I get real low and I'm away for even a second, we're shooting back up to full. Cold exposure, taking +1 to cold skills, freeze buildup on enemies. You could take this if you wanted to instead and just start taking all these cold increases for a little more damage. I prefer the more defensive option. And then I'm taking these just to get more ignite, a little more elemental damage for ailments here too. We're pathing over here, taking all of maximum energy shield. I know this lowers the start, but I think 60% increase is worth it to meet stat requirements and taking ingenuity. Faster start of recharge rate over here. See, I have the 1 maximum fire resistance jewel here. The other modifiers on it, I think it can get a lot more expensive, and they're not that useful. There is like increased elemental damage and defense from shield. It's, they get expensive with that. I just bought the base +2 when I could find it. I was exalting them. I was corrupting them because the implicit was actually of a corrupted jewel was way more valuable to me. +6 strength. My other one has +6 or 8 dexterity. I'm taking the triggered spells increase here, and you'll see increased energy. So I've taken 2 of these. I don't need the third one where I'm currently at. I have enough here, and this 25% chance is actually pretty useless. I'm filling up every time anyways. I don't need it. If you would notice, I'll spec out of this for 1 second. So if I spec out, it's tuned right now that if I spec out of that 8% increase, I'll turn this off and turn it back on, and I trigger the Pact. I'm at 100% now. Well, actually, still at 100%. So, turns out I was wrong. I don't even need that point. But then let's respec another point. We'll try it again. So I trigger the Pact. I'm at 97%. So I'm only getting 2 Barrier Invocation charges. The loop gets a little weird. 3-2, 3-2. You could actually play that way if you wanted to. It's not a terrible way to do it now that I'm looking at it, but I think I'll take it back for now, and actually I can take Whispers of Doom, so that's great. We're pathing to hits ignore non-elemental resistances of frozen enemies, so when you're freezing them, you're not really needing to frostbomb anymore. I'm not chain freezing like other builds. Bosses will still have that opportunity to move around, so you're going to need to apply some more debuffs. Increased hits with frozen enemies. You're going to notice when they're frozen, you're doing a lot more damage. Faster start of recharge. and then meta increased energy. Like, you know, there's 2 extra skill points here. I could probably, you know, switch one of that or something. I don't know. But just where I'm at now, it's pretty comfortable. We're swinging over to the left side. I'm taking more here to path through this jewel, and then I'm pathing down to faster startup recharge. I did have it where I had these 3 points and then a jewel socket here, and I was taking, I got rid of climate change. That looked like a pretty bad choice. I think the damage from this is probably quite a bit, and the 1 jewel wasn't really giving me enough to justify it. I did path through here before. Looks like I can get rid of that skill point because I was going through and then down. I'll take that out, find somewhere else for it. Now see, when I swap to my shield, these points switch. So I've spec'd out of some of this energy shield recharge into the curse duration effect over here. It's, you know, my energy shield recovery isn't good with the shield anyways, but I do need the curse effect for temporal chains. I eventually plan on finishing up, you know, effect and hindered increased area with curses. That's going to be pretty nice for this temporal chain swap. It'll probably be a lot bigger, cover a lot larger zone. So 2 more levels with that. It looks like I've, you know, the max mana was part of my weapon swap 1. So were these 2 ES nodes up here. It does, you know, it looks a little janky, but those maximum energy shield I need to get the infernal flame loop. The loop's not going to trigger when I'm weapon swapped. You can still fight this way. For example, so I'm here at 3. I shoot a barrier. Oops. It only goes up to 1. There's not really a loop going on, but you can fight like this for a little bit. So my plans, I'll go over the plans for the future later. Let's talk about the Ascendancy. So clearly you need this. You're pretty flexible on options. Since we're not doing CI and we're not doing life recoup, we can start taking these other nodes. This one's pretty mandatory, 8 maximum ES per, or maximum energy per 8 maximum life. It gives me a lot more energy shield. It makes life nodes valuable, or life on your armor valuable too. And you know, all these stats are really adding up. For the other node, I've tried everything on here actually. So I can use Grinning Immolation because I'm Ignited Immune. Comet has a very high crit chance. You're just getting 30% more. I think that's a multiplier. I've taken the demon, little demon dog in the past. The thing with him, he can take a hit from Pyromantic Pact, so 20% of that will go to him as long as he's alive. It'll decrease your energy drain, but if you're energy gain, but if you're struggling with like resistances or something, he can help balance it out, and he fights things. If you're using it this way, he's not really going to do any damage for you. Demon form didn't really work that well. I didn't try this long. I don't really think there's a way to incorporate it. I believe at least it worked when it unequips your weapons, so it just made it real awkward. And now I'm taking the +1 max spirit per 25 life. I have 40 spirit on my amulet. With just that, it lets me run you know, Grim Feast and Arctic Armor, but since I'm taking that node, I can run Blink. If I had 1 more life, I could fit something else in here, a 30 cost aura, but I don't. If I get to that, I don't know what I'll put in. I actually was going to put in Lingering Illusion. It doesn't do anything, but you leave behind, you know, a little illusion, you know, when you blink. So, you know, that's cool. But it doesn't do anything. So that's kind of how I'm set up currently with that. So you can vary with what, you know, is good, bad, how you feel like you want to play. It's just hard to get to that point. You can have a lot of missteps with gearing where your mana's too low or your life's too low. But generally, if you're getting, you know, this as high as possible and your fire resistance in a good place, I'd suggest over at 85 or higher, it's going to feel pretty decent. you're not going to be able to just roll through maps. You got to protect yourself. You can't just, there's no recovery from really anything other than passive and just, you know, jumping around. But it's pretty good. So for extreme endgame, I don't think I'll get there. I don't even know how well this build holds up past where I'm currently at. Like I said, some of the other videos I had, I'm doing T15s, T16s, but I haven't done these like endgame bosses. I don't even know what this guy looks like, or what the breach guy looks like. I've seen like some clips, but I haven't watched his fight in entirety. So this might just fall flat when you get to that point, which would suck, but you know, it's kind of part of this whole trying to figure it out. What I would had in mind for extreme endgame, like if I had an infinite amount of money, which I have 11 orbs, so we're not going to get there, is anointing, you know, probably the most expensive one in the game. Where is it? Maximum fire resistance per each uncapped fire. It lets you swap out all these rubies. Well, actually, brief side point, I didn't talk about the sapphires. The sapphires, I'm using all meta gain increased energy, faster start of ES recharge, and increased maximum ES are the most important three. They can get pretty expensive, I think. The prices for everything is just all over the place. But I currently have 1, 2, 3 of those slotted in the build. So if you're not getting enough meta gain increase from here, you know, you're going to have to take more of these nodes, adjust your FR a little lower, or just try to find ways to increase your maximum energy shield. What was I talking about? So ideas for extreme endgame. Comet seems to scale pretty well with crit, so you could start taking these crit nodes that are nearby. I actually just don't have that much increased elemental damage, so there's things over here like Storm Charge I think would be pretty good. All natural. Or you could start speccing an area of effect. I don't know if it's probably not really worth it. I'm just not going to get to that point. I don't have that much time to play. But it's worth, you know, thinking about, hoping for things like that. So that's kind of the build in a nutshell. The most expensive part is probably going to be, you know, your body armor and this jewel. They're really a pain to search for. You can't like search for the mods. I had to have like an active live search going. I bought it for 1 divine. There wasn't that many. The rolls can range here, so you can see 4 to 6. If you're at a 4, you're gonna have to take some extra points. 6 might like save you 1. So that's pretty much it. I would say this overall is a lot less tanky than those life recoup and CI versions. I don't know if it's faster or more damage either, so I don't think, you know, I would really maybe try this. It's fun, but if you're looking to, here it is. I would just suggest that you kind of pre-plan it out. I don't feel like I can help you get there. You just have to figure it out. If you want, you can just go with these same numbers that I have. 10,000 shield, about 1,700 life, and then 85 fire resistance. And then for my Barrier Invocation, it's going to say, so I have 144%. Let me just double check, make sure we're, so yeah, 144% triggering the loop each time. And if you're just like, you know what, I don't know what I'm doing, you can just swap in this here at 184%. You're probably going to be fine. I would suggest checking out some of the other Barrier Invocation builds if you're looking to really hammer out this end game content. This one's more of just my fun personal project that I'm trying to work through. I don't think I'll really be like making updates or anything like that too actively, but I will try if there's any interest. So, all right, good luck.